Welcome. Today, we delve into one of the most feared and misunderstood schools of magic in all of Dungeons & Dragons, the School of Necromancy. Often associated with death, decay, and forbidden power, necromancy is far more than raising skeletons. It is the study of life's final chapter and the mastery of what lies beyond. From soul manipulation to restoring the dead or tearing them apart, necromancers walk a narrow line between salvation and damnation. In this episode, we'll explore the origins of necromantic magic, the ethical dilemmas it brings, and the terrifying potential of those who wield death as a tool. If you're fascinated by dark arts, moral gray areas, and the mysteries of mortality, consider leaving a like and subscribing to the channel. It helps support the journey and tells me you're ready to uncover more arcane secrets. And, in the comments, let me know. Which school of magic or forbidden art should we cover next? Your suggestion might summon the next episode. Now, we journey deeper, down into the very core of existence itself, to the hidden forces that shape all life and the profound stillness that follows. To truly understand this mysterious magic, we must first quietly reflect on the subtle yet vibrant concepts of life force and the soul, before turning to their immense and chilling cosmic opposite, the negative energy plane. Imagine, if you will, that within every living creature, from the tiniest insect dancing briefly in the sunlight of a summer afternoon, whose life is barely more than a heartbeat, to the oldest, mightiest dragon, whose slumber spans centuries deep within its cavernous lair, there exists an invisible current. This is the life force, the essence of vitality. It's a gentle, constant energy, coursing through veins, fueling muscles, sparking thoughts, and enabling every living being to grow, heal, and flourish. It's the warm, unseen glow that separates the living from the lifeless, the active from the inert. You cannot touch it directly, nor clearly see it, yet you can feel its presence, a soft warmth radiating outward, a quiet resonance unique to each creature. Life force is the hum behind every breath, the pulse behind every heartbeat, endlessly drawing in nourishment from the world and turning it into life itself. Closely woven into this living energy, like a delicate thread within an enormous cosmic tapestry, is something even more personal, the soul. The soul is the essence of who someone truly is, a quiet yet profound blueprint of personality, memories, dreams, and emotions. It's what makes each being distinct and irreplaceable, the hidden core where past, present, and future converge. Life force animates the body, but the soul gives that life meaning, depth, and identity. When death comes, a profound stillness settles in. The life force, once vibrant, gently begins to dissipate, quietly flowing back into the universal currents, much like a river slowly returning to the ocean. Meanwhile, the soul, now freed from its mortal home, begins its own journey. For a moment, it might linger a faint, shimmering presence near the body, softly saying goodbye, suspended briefly in the space between worlds. Soon enough, however, it drifts onward, gently guided toward the outer planes. Or perhaps, if the soul carries unfinished business or unresolved emotions, it might linger longer, becoming a restless echo, softly haunting the edges of the mortal world. Ultimately, death is a quiet release, the gentle separation of spirit from body, leaving behind only a still and empty shell. Now, let's turn our thoughts to the immense and chilling vastness of the negative energy plane. This realm is not evil in the usual sense, nor is it born from malevolent intent. Instead, it's a primal plane of existence, a stark cosmic opposite to the life-giving positive energy plane. Imagine a vast, desolate void, a place of absolute darkness, devoid of even the faintest glimmer of light or warmth. Here, vitality doesn't simply vanish. It is actively consumed, drawn inexorably into a pervasive emptiness. It's a realm of profound cold, and a silence so deep it feels tangible, seeping into everything it touches, slowly dissolving all forms and matter. Here, nothing grows, nothing truly lives, nothing thrives in any meaningful sense. Everything that enters is gradually unmade, pulled apart into silent oblivion. Even physical matter seems to fade away faster, drawn into a quiet decay, dissolving gently into nothingness. It's a realm of ultimate entropy, a place where all things inevitably drift toward non-existence, where even sound is swallowed, leaving behind only a heavy, aching stillness. The negative energy plane is the source, the dark spring from which the unnatural life of the undead draws its haunting, cold strength. It stands as the opposite of all vitality, a cosmic void tirelessly pulling life energy into itself, a force that counters creation. Yet, strangely enough, it is necessary, crucial even, for maintaining cosmic balance, providing an essential counterweight to the boundless energy and endless renewal flowing from the positive energy plane. From this chilling emptiness, necromancers learn to harness raw, destructive, and unnatural energies. Imagine stretching your senses outward and feeling a coldness slowly seeping deep into your bones, not just a lack of warmth, but a subtle, consuming force gently pulling your energy away, quietly eroding your own vitality. This unsettling sensation is exactly what it feels like to connect directly to this plane, an endless, silent hunger that empowers the forbidden magic of undeath, granting it an eerie semblance of life. It doesn't truly create vitality, but rather defies natural decay, forcing lifeless matter to move and act through emptiness alone. Necromancy, at its heart, is the delicate magical practice of studying, understanding, and ultimately manipulating these fundamental forces. It involves becoming intimately familiar with the subtle currents of life and decay, mastering that fine boundary between existence and non-existence, between motion and eternal stillness. A necromancer is not simply a spellcaster. They are scholars of endings, philosophers of finality, masters of forces most find unsettling, dangerous, or deeply taboo. Their path is often one of intense curiosity, a quiet obsession that goes beyond ordinary ambition, peering deep into the very edges of life and death itself. Picture the necromancer's study, a quiet, secluded chamber where the air always feels cooler than it should, even on the warmest of days. They spend countless hours here, poring over ancient, fragile texts, bound in worn leather, tracing faded runes and intricate diagrams, mapping the hidden flow of vitality and negative energy. They sit for long, contemplative periods in darkness, meditating on the nature of death, observing carefully that precise instant when a soul separates from the body, or studying the subtle ways decay slowly claims a lifeless form. They become sensitive not just with their eyes, but with their deeper senses, learning to detect the gentle, radiant warmth of life emanating from the living and the chilling void, the cold emptiness that surrounds the dead and undead alike. They carefully channel small amounts of negative energy, feeling its quiet pull against their own life force, cautiously testing, experimenting, and exploring its dangerous secrets. Their magic is rarely loud or flashy. Instead, it is quiet, subtle, and profoundly personal, touching the very heart of existence and non-existence. They delicately draw life from one place to reinforce another, infuse lifeless flesh with unlife, or pause a soul briefly before it departs on its destined path. This slow accumulation of forbidden wisdom this patient mastery over the thresholds of being, unfolds in a silence broken only by the quiet rustle of pages or the soft whispering of ancient spells, echoing gently through chambers steeped in thoughtful solitude. Now that we've explored the deeper energies at the heart of necromancy, let's turn to the paths its practitioners follow, considering the subtle and often misunderstood ways this magic can appear in the world. Necromancy is more complex than common fears suggest. It doesn't always revolve around reanimating the dead. It touches gently upon preserving life, carefully weakening opponents, and even sensing echoes of life after death. First, let's address a common misconception. Necromancy isn't solely focused on death or decay. In fact, it quietly offers surprising opportunities for preservation, even healing, though not the warm, nurturing restoration provided by divine magic. Instead, it offers a colder, more measured manipulation of life force and negative energy, carefully strengthening or briefly imitating a living creature's vitality. Take, for instance, the spell False Life. Here, a necromancer subtly draws upon negative energy, the very force usually associated with undeath, and wraps it gently around someone still alive. Rather than truly restoring life, it creates a temporary, protective shell of unlife, providing an icy buffer against injury. Imagine a faint, chilly glow softly enveloping someone, strengthening them just enough to withstand damage that would otherwise cripple them. It's a borrowed vigor, a fleeting resilience drawn from the quiet energy of emptiness, allowing someone to briefly surpass their normal limits, a testament to the necromancer's careful mastery of these hidden energies. Next, consider the spell Gentle Repose, a quiet and respectful ritual designed not to animate, but to preserve. When performed upon the deceased, this spell magically suspends natural decay, creating an atmosphere of profound peace. Picture a necromancer working slowly and gently in a cool, quiet room, a mortuary or burial chamber, tracing subtle patterns over the body, their whispered words hanging softly in the air. A faint, almost invisible chill settles upon the departed, pausing all decomposition and shielding the body from scavengers or the passage of time. This magic doesn't seek to defy death, it seeks to honor it. Perhaps it keeps the body ready for resurrection by another's hand, or simply ensures a dignified burial at a later date. It's a quiet, respectful pause in nature's cycle, a gentle promise that allows the dead to rest untouched, in perfect stillness. And then there's Speak with Dead, a somber spell offering the living a brief chance to reach across the veil. This isn't resurrection or reanimation, rather, it's a gentle, temporary connection to faint echoes of memory and personality still lingering near the deceased. Imagine the necromancer kneeling respectfully beside a cold body, softly murmuring the ancient words. For a brief, poignant moment, an ephemeral, translucent presence seems to gather around the corpse, allowing the living to speak with this faint echo. The answers are usually direct, devoid of emotion, as the true soul has long since departed. This spell is a fleeting, often bittersweet connection, offering a quiet moment to ask questions, gain closure, or receive crucial information. It's not flashy, nor is it dramatic. It's simply a soft whisper across the veil, a final moment of quiet conversation, filled with sadness, yet profoundly meaningful. Finally, true practitioners of necromancy often find themselves becoming naturally resistant to necrotic harm. Having grown deeply accustomed to the subtle chill and draining touch of negative energies, their bodies instinctively resist these destructive forces, granting them a quiet resilience against its cold embrace. Now, let's explore the more familiar, yet quietly unsettling side of necromancy, its ability to cause harm. This harm is seldom loud or violent. It's subtle, methodical, and deeply chilling. Rather than relying on brute force or visible wounds, it silently drains and weakens the life force itself, leaving victims exhausted, cold, and profoundly depleted. Consider spells like Inflict Wounds or Chill Touch. When a necromancer uses these, they're not wielding blades or conjuring flames. Instead, they release a wave of intense supernatural cold, a chill that isn't just felt physically, but actively draws away vitality, quietly siphoning off strength until the victim is left sluggish, weary, and strangely hollow. Imagine feeling your very energy gently slipping away, as though your warmth and vigor are being softly, inexorably drawn into an unseen void. No visible wounds mark your body. Only a haunting emptiness remains, a quiet erosion of your essence from within. Similarly, spells such as Ray of Sickness or Blindness, Deafness do not batter their victims physically. Instead, they delicately disrupt the body's natural rhythms. A carefully directed pulse of negative energy subtly interferes with biological functions, inducing sudden waves of nausea, distorting perception, or silencing senses without leaving a mark. These spells create an internal unraveling, a quiet sabotage of bodily processes, like a gentle yet devastating internal collapse. Then there are the draining abilities exemplified by spells like Vampiric Touch. Here, the necromancer quietly reaches out, seemingly absorbing life energy directly from their victim. It's a cold, clinical exchange, a silent transfer of vitality where the caster subtly replenishes their own strength, drawing energy softly and steadily from another. There's no violent struggle, only a quiet draining away of the target's strength, leaving them progressively weaker as their own energy gently flows into the necromancer. Finally, a unique and deeply intuitive skill possessed by necromancers is their heightened ability to sense life and death energies. After prolonged meditation and careful study, they develop a finely tuned awareness, a kind of sixth sense for the subtle vibrations of vitality and decay. They can cast spells to detect specifically necrotic energies, or quietly discern the subtle echoes of life and death around them. Imagine being able to sense the faint, radiant warmth emanating from every living creature, like a soft, glowing aura, visible only to the necromancer. Conversely, they also feel the stark, chilling emptiness that surrounds the dead, or the subtle residue left behind after dark rituals' quiet imprints only they perceive clearly. This refined sensitivity extends even into forensic applications. Without reanimating or disturbing a corpse, a necromancer can carefully attune themselves to the lingering echoes of the deceased's final moments. Through gentle touch or whispered incantation, they might perceive the quiet afterimage of violence, the slow shadow of disease, or the subtle lingering trace of poison. It's a form of quiet, respectful detective work, sometimes melancholic but always deeply insightful, uncovering truths that only the departed can silently share, revealed uniquely through the necromancer's quiet, attentive awareness. Their profound understanding of death's subtle nuances grants them an unmatched perspective, quietly illuminating details that remain invisible to all others. Perhaps more than any other form of magic, necromancy forces those who study it to grapple deeply with profound questions of morality, meaning, and the very nature of life itself. Inevitably, practitioners come face to face with ethical boundaries, often finding themselves at a crossroads where their thirst for knowledge nudges against, or sometimes crosses lines, society considers sacred and forbidden. Consider first the way necromancy is perceived, and the profound instinctive fear it evokes in others. Nearly every culture across countless lands and ages holds deep reverence for the cycle of life and death, the final rest of the departed, the solemn respect paid to those who've passed, and the quiet return to the earth are rituals universally honored. Necromancy, however, deliberately disrupts this natural cycle, reaching into realms intended to remain untouched by mortal hands. Imagine the primal unease within a community whose ancestors' peaceful rest has been disturbed, graves violated, loved ones unnaturally reanimated. Such acts cut deeply into human dignity and ancestral respect, undermining fundamental beliefs about the sanctity of death and the body once the soul has moved on. It's as if an unspoken agreement with the departed has been broken, the quiet trust of the grave shattered. This profound violation explains why necromancers are typically feared, shunned, or even actively pursued, often forced to practice their arts secretly, in hidden chambers or remote places, their very names whispered anxiously even by fellow mages. Their isolation is rarely by choice, but by necessity, a consequence of the path they've chosen. Yet, despite widespread fear and condemnation, necromancy holds an undeniable, subtle allure. The irresistible pull of forbidden knowledge, those driven by an insatiable curiosity, a longing to pierce the deepest mysteries of existence, might find necromancy compelling precisely because it confronts life's ultimate questions. What lies beyond death? Can mortality truly be defied? Can the soul be commanded? Ambitious scholars, eager magicians, or grieving souls who refuse to accept loss may initially turn to necromancy for noble reasons to preserve life, to ease sorrow, or simply to understand the mysteries that death presents. Yet the power to control life and death, to glimpse behind that final curtain, whispers seductively, drawing them deeper into solitude and research, distancing them from their former lives and from the moral compass they once trusted. Curiosity quietly becomes obsession. Wisdom subtly gives way to arrogance, and the line between understanding death and wielding its power blurs dangerously. This brings us to the core concern, the delicate boundary between academic curiosity and a deeper, sometimes darker corruption. Constant exposure to negative energies, the cold stillness of death, the silent animation of empty forms can slowly erode a necromancer's empathy and their connection to the living. Picture spending countless days studying decay, meticulously dissecting bodies, or channeling the draining cold of negative energy. Over time, the vibrant warmth and sanctity of life might start feeling less meaningful. Gradually, respect for the body and compassion for others' suffering may diminish, not through sudden cruelty, but through quiet detachment, a slow numbing to things once considered sacred. The ethical lines become blurred. What started purely as intellectual pursuit gradually slips into a cold indifference, where causing harm becomes merely another experiment, just another demonstration of mastery. The very act of controlling the undead beings completely lacking their own will can create a deep sense of dominion, a feeling of entitlement to command even the most sacred realms of existence. This quiet but profound power might gradually shift into disregard for the free will and autonomy of living beings. Yet one must wonder, is it the magic itself that inevitably darkens the soul, or simply the unsettling magnitude of power it provides, combined with the choices the practitioner makes? This is a subtle but essential philosophical question, one every necromancer must quietly wrestle with, whether consciously or deep within their thoughts. The darkness doesn't always announce itself dramatically. Often, it creeps in quietly, a slow chilling of compassion and empathy, replaced by a cold, detached pursuit of knowledge and dominance. Ultimately, necromancy, perhaps more than any other form of magic, demands a direct, often uncomfortable examination of mortality, consciousness, and the boundaries of existence itself. It compels both practitioners and those observing its effects to ask fundamental questions. Where does life truly begin or end? Is consciousness merely a temporary flicker, or an eternal flame that can be captured, directed, or even commanded? Do we have the right to interfere with the natural cycles birth, life, death, and final rest? Should we attempt to pluck a soul from its intended journey, or force a lifeless body to move beyond its natural limits? A necromancer, in their persistent pursuit, often tries to assume a role similar to a lesser deity, attempting to rewrite the rules of life and death that normally remain beyond mortal grasp. This quiet rebellion against the natural order speaks profoundly to humanity's enduring urge for control, even over death itself. It leaves the necromancer isolated, uniquely knowledgeable, and forever treading a path shadowed by deep ethical uncertainties. Now we come to necromancy's most iconic, and for many, most unsettling application: the art of raising the dead. This is not a gentle reunion of soul and body, nor a compassionate restoration of life. Instead, it is an act of profound magical skill, a chilling manipulation that taps directly into the negative energy plane, drawing its consuming essence into the empty shell of a corpse. Picture the necromancer working quietly, perhaps alone in a crypt, or in the forgotten darkness of an abandoned mausoleum, or standing silently amid the somber quiet of an ancient battlefield. The air grows colder, becoming thick with the subtle pulse of draining, lifeless energy. With careful, practiced movements, tracing arcane symbols onto the ground or the body itself, and murmuring quiet, ancient incantations filled with chilling resonance, the necromancer begins the ritual of animate dead. Perhaps a faint, ghostly glow flickers momentarily within the empty eyes of a skull, or the body shudders gently, almost imperceptibly. Then, with eerie silence, the lifeless form stirs. There's no gasp for air, no warmth of blood returning, no heartbeat resuming, just the mechanical, chilling motion of a vessel animated by borrowed energy. The force that moves these remains is not life returned, but a cold echo of existence, pulled directly from the negative energy plane. These bodies are empty vessels, puppets guided by unseen strings of negative power utterly hollow, forever separate from the souls that once lived within them. Let's first consider the two simplest and most frequently animated forms of undead: skeletons and zombies. When animating skeletons, the result is stark, clean, and unnervingly precise. The moment the animate dead spell touches bare bones, negative energy fills the marrow, causing the joints to bend, limbs to move, and skull to turn, all without muscles, breath, or any trace of flesh. Imagine scattered, pale bones suddenly rattling to life, pulling themselves together with quiet, rhythmic clicks, each piece finding its rightful place effortlessly. Once animated, their movements become tireless, unburdened by flesh or fatigue. There's no subtle expression, no flicker of emotion, only empty sockets, perhaps faintly glowing with cold, arcane light that stare blankly ahead. Purely functional, utterly devoid of personality. They follow the commands of their master without question. When they move, the only sounds are the soft scraping of bone against stone, the quiet clack of joint meeting joint, or the gentle tapping of skeletal feet. Their existence embodies silent obedience and precision, defying their former state as inert, lifeless remains. They can stand guard for centuries without rest, or pursue tirelessly, their quiet rattling the only sound to break the deep stillness around them. In contrast, animating a fresher corpse yields a zombie lumbering, decaying, and unsettlingly lifelike. Negative energy seeps into the remaining muscle, tissue, and organs, forcing them to twitch and contract in a crude mimicry of life. Their appearance is grim. Decaying skin sags heavily, tattered clothes hang loosely, and often a low guttural moan or wet rasp emerges from their throats, not true breathing, but an involuntary consequence of their unnatural animation. Their movements are heavy and relentless, a slow shuffle marked by the heavy thud of their feet against the ground. Driven purely by crude impulses rather than conscious thought, they move slowly, lacking coordination, but their bodies, though decaying, can withstand blows that would easily shatter bone. They represent decay given motion, a haunting reminder that something once vibrant and unique is now merely a tool, used to perform the simplest tasks until their bodies inevitably fall apart. The horror here feels immediate. These were once living beings, now utterly emptied of identity, reduced to hollow shells endlessly carrying out their master's commands. Their constant shambling steps and mindless groans serve only to deepen the profound unease of their presence. Moving beyond these basic undead forms, necromancy can create even more complex and disturbing creatures' entities that sometimes retain twisted echoes of their former lives, or arise from especially dark circumstances. These more intricate creations often demand advanced magic, such as the create undead spell or elaborate rituals. Take, for instance, ghouls and ghasts. Though still corporeal, these creatures embody an insatiable, unnatural hunger for living flesh. Often born from those who committed cannibalism or died consumed by starvation and despair, they rise through rituals that corrupt and warp their very essence. Their touch brings a paralyzing chill, silently freezing the limbs and stealing away their victim's strength. Imagine their hunched, shadowy forms moving silently through graveyards or abandoned crypts, their eyes glittering with unnatural hunger, radiating an insatiable emptiness. Creating them involves deeper corruption, negative energy infused not merely to animate, but to imprint a terrible, unending craving. The spell Ghoul Touch echoes this chilling paralysis directly onto the living, reflecting the ghoul's intrinsic nature, a quiet yet potent echo of death's own stillness. Then there are the specters and wraiths, ethereal, incorporeal, undead, composed purely of negative energy. Unlike skeletons or zombies, they are not reanimated bodies, but lingering echoes of souls twisted by grief, evil, or unfinished business. Specters often form from souls trapped by torment or regret, clinging to the mortal world, silently reaching out to drain strength and warmth from the living with their chilling, intangible touch. Their forms are translucent, barely visible, shimmering like distorted air as they glide quietly, their very presence spreading a subtle yet penetrating coldness. Wraiths, meanwhile, are even more potent beings, frequently arising from deep malice or corrupt necromantic rituals. Darker and more shadow-like, wraiths don't just drain strength, they siphon away the very life essence itself, transforming their victims into new undead beings. Imagine the profound emptiness and quiet despair surrounding these entities, an eerie silence that seems to swallow sound itself. Their existence feels like a perpetual, muted scream, an eternal hunger and torment wrapped in shadow. Their ghostly forms slip effortlessly through solid matter, defying all physical boundaries with unsettling ease. Higher-level spells like Create Undead are often used to summon or craft these powerful spirits, demanding a deeper understanding of soul fragments and pure negative energy. Finally, we encounter the haunting forms of mummies and wights. Mummies are created through ancient, elaborate rituals designed not merely to animate, but also preserve a body often that of an influential ruler or priest, allowing them to awaken centuries later, carrying curses or unfinished tasks into eternity. Their dried, wrapped bodies exude a powerful aura of dread, their mere presence infecting living beings with despair. Their movements are slow and deliberate, heavy footsteps accompanied by the dry rustle of ancient bandages. Wights, on the other hand, arise from fallen warriors or corrupted noble figures, carrying a chilling power to drain vitality and spread their dark nature like a contagious plague. Victims touched by wights are transformed into wights themselves, perpetuating an endless cycle of despair. These undead often appear as gaunt, decaying figures dressed in spectral armor, haunting old battlefields or forgotten crypts. They move silently, driven relentlessly by bitterness and vengeance. The chilling truth that unifies all these forms of animated dead is simple yet profound. None of them are truly alive. They do not breathe. Their hearts remain forever silent. They lack genuine thought or reason as living creatures understand them. They are vessels, empty shells, or echoes filled with torment, entirely devoid of free will, endlessly propelled by negative energy or the lingering pains of their former lives. Their existence is a quiet, relentless pursuit of the single purpose they embody, a living testament to their Creator's will or to the dark forces that shaped them. The defining quality that binds them all is their silence, a deep, chilling quietness, resonating powerfully with the emptiness at their core. Having explored the animation of lifeless bodies, transforming them into silent, tireless servants by channeling negative energy, we now approach an even more deeply unsettling realm of necromancy, the direct manipulation of the soul itself. For master necromancers, the soul isn't simply an abstract spiritual idea or faint echo of identity. It becomes a tangible, though intangible, source of magical power, memory, and consciousness. A powerful entity waiting to be studied, controlled, or even reshaped. It is life's purest essence, now exposed to forbidden understanding. Consider first the chilling practice of creating soul cages or soul jars. These are carefully crafted magical vessels, perhaps perfect, enchanted gemstones, or beautifully intricate boxes forged from rare, dark metals, not intended to hold treasures of gold or jewels, but the very consciousness of a soul. Crafting such an object, and subsequently trapping a soul inside, ranks among the most delicate, morally fraught rituals known in magical tradition. Imagine the necromancer working silently, alone in a secluded chamber where the air itself feels thick and charged with latent magic. With precise, almost surgical care, they inscribe intricate, arcane symbols onto the vessel, using magical ink, sanctified blood, or even powdered shadow. Quietly, methodically, they whisper ancient incantations, words from long-forgotten tongues that hum softly with unsettling resonance, tapping into negative energy and subtle connections to the ethereal plane. At the ritual's climax, you might sense a faint ripple, a soft gasp in the air itself, as a soul vibrant, unique, now suddenly severed from its physical anchor is drawn irresistibly into its new, unyielding container, perhaps struggling silently, yet powerless to resist its imprisonment. Within this new, cold prison, the trapped soul experiences a timeless, unending despair. It remains fully aware of its confinement, fully conscious of its enforced stillness, yet utterly unable to escape. Its intended journey to rest now indefinitely halted. There is no comfort, no release, only the profound quiet of eternal captivity. This creates a uniquely profound horror, a conscious, feeling entity, with memories and identity intact, reduced to helpless imprisonment within an inert, unfeeling object, its existence a silent scream of trapped consciousness. The necromancer might then tap this soul's energy, extracting power or knowledge, treating it merely as a resource, ignoring its former dignity or humanity. To those sensitive enough to perceive it, the trapped soul emits a faint, mournful hum, a gentle, ceaseless lament resonating from within its silent, eternal prison. Moving even deeper, a master necromancer may attempt the transfer of consciousness itself, epitomized by the magic jar spell. This represents a significant step forward in necromantic ability, enabling a caster to temporarily abandon their own physical body and inhabit another. To begin this ritual, the necromancer prepares a special magical container, the jar itself, often a carefully selected gem, crystal, or sealed vessel to serve as a temporary home for their soul. As they cast the complex spell, their soul gently lifts away from their physical form. Imagine the strange sensation of your consciousness, your very essence quietly disconnecting from your body, becoming weightless, untethered from all earthly sensation. Your body is left behind, inert and empty, appearing lifeless, awaiting your eventual return. Now, your detached soul, invisible and intangible, drifts silently into the prepared vessel, taking up temporary residence. From inside this container, the necromancer may project their consciousness outward, seeking to enter another living being. Picture the profoundly unsettling feeling of slipping quietly into another's body, experiencing unfamiliar sensations, strange muscles, alien rhythms, unknown perceptions. Often, there's a subtle, silent struggle for dominance inside the new host, a quiet battle of wills as the necromancer attempts to seize control, gently pushing the original consciousness into a dormant, dreamlike state, becoming a prisoner within its own mind. This temporary possession grants the necromancer a remarkable tool, the ability to gather knowledge, perform complex tasks, or commit dark deeds without endangering their own physical form, safely concealed elsewhere. The philosophical questions raised by this practice are profound. What becomes of the original consciousness during possession? Is identity rooted in the physical body, or is it bound solely to the soul? Spells like these blur the lines of selfhood, making identity something fluid, something transferable under a necromancer's precise control. The quiet horror lies in the loss of personal autonomy, the silent intrusion upon a being's fundamental essence. Beyond this, necromancers who deeply understand the subtleties of life energy and willpower can extend their control beyond mere undead creatures, influencing the minds and bodies of the living. Although spells like Geese or Dominate Person are not exclusively necromantic, necromancers often wield them with chilling skill. Their intimate grasp of life force and consciousness enables them to apply these spells with insidious precision. Geese subtly compels a victim to fulfill or avoid certain acts, quietly overriding free will with an internal compulsion, yet leaving their outward appearance untouched. It's a subtle psychological manipulation, a whisper within the mind. Dominate Person, by contrast, provides direct and forceful control, transforming the target into a living puppet whose actions are entirely dictated by the necromancer's silent command. To the necromancer, influencing living minds echoes their control over the undead. It's a matter of asserting dominance over will itself, whether that will is present in the living or entirely absent in reanimated bodies. The disturbing subtlety lies in the victim's unawareness. Often, the targets believe their compelled actions are their own choices, oblivious to the invisible chains that bind them. This reflects the deeper philosophical stance at necromancy's core. All beings, whether alive or undead, are ultimately just vessels or clusters of energy, existing to be manipulated by a superior will. The chilling implication is that even individual freedom can be quietly stripped away, leaving behind only hollow echoes of another's intent. Mastery over life, unlife, body, and will makes the necromancer profoundly formidable and unsettling, an unseen power working silently within the darkest corners of magic. Having traversed the subtle currents of life energy, experienced the consuming chill of negative forces, and understood the delicate intricacies of soul manipulation, we finally reach the ultimate ambition of the most dedicated and ruthless necromancers: the pursuit of lichdom. To become a lich means utterly defying the natural cycle of mortality, conquering death itself. It involves transforming one's fragile mortal form into an undying vessel, filled with immense arcane power. This goes beyond mere corpse animation or temporary reanimation. It is the ultimate act of self-preservation, extending consciousness indefinitely beyond death, sacrificing warmth, sensation, and even humanity itself, in exchange for eternal, cold, calculating intellect and limitless magical capability. At its core, a lich is a being of immense, chilling patience. Unlike simpler undead, driven by base instinct or singular purpose, a lich fully retains its intellect, memories, and magical abilities, enhanced and expanded through an endless existence. It becomes a creature of cold, relentless logic, often entirely isolated from the world. Its plans unfold across centuries, driven by an insatiable desire for forbidden knowledge that consumes its immortal existence. Within its dry, lifeless chest, no heart beats. Its throat draws no breath. Its empty eyes contain no flicker of warmth, only silent, calculating thought, forever scheming, forever learning. The path to lichdom is neither easily discovered nor swiftly traveled. The transformation ritual is brutal, horrifying, and extraordinarily complex, a culmination of decades, even centuries, of careful study and morally questionable actions. The preparation itself is arduous, demanding relentless dedication, a complete abandonment of former ethical boundaries, and an otherworldly patience beyond mortal comprehension. The aspiring lich must first uncover ancient, forbidden texts, often written by long-dead necromancers, hidden deep within lost archives or sealed tombs of forgotten empires. These grim tomes contain precise, chilling instructions, intricate runic formulas, and exact incantations necessary for the ritual knowledge dark enough to forever alter the soul that dares pursue it. The preparations themselves require meticulously gathering extraordinarily rare and often deeply unsettling components. These aren't simply herbs or common jewels, but items infused with immense magical potency, often carrying echoes of profound suffering. Imagine quietly and patiently assembling such ingredients as the tears of a succubus, the blood of an innocent sacrificed beneath a corrupted moon, the dust collected from the forgotten altar of a fallen god, or even the crystallized despair of countless tortured souls. Each component resonates darkly, contributing its own unsettling tone to the chilling symphony of the ritual. Moreover, the aspirant must commit horrifying acts that deliberately sever all ties to humanity and compassion. These deeds, often involving unspeakable cruelty or betrayal of those once deeply loved, serve not only as sources of magical potency, but as rituals of spiritual cleansing, systematically stripping away every trace of empathy and warmth. Over the course of years, sometimes decades, these moral transgressions slowly reshape the necromancer's soul, leaving only a cold, relentless will to survive and dominate. Central to the entire process is the creation of the phylactery, an object essential to the lich's eternal existence, the vessel that will ultimately house its immortal soul. Far from being extravagant or elaborate, this artifact often appears small and humble. Perhaps a carefully polished gemstone, an intricately etched amulet, a plain wooden box, or an unremarkable ring. Yet, its creation demands immense effort, as the necromancer spends months or even years meticulously inscribing intricate runes, performing complex binding rituals, and carefully infusing the vessel with a fragment of their own life essence, alongside immense quantities of negative energy. Picture the necromancer tirelessly laboring in solitude, working silently with exacting care, each tiny rune or whispered incantation building an indestructible spiritual anchor. This phylactery becomes the lich's true heart, the core of their identity and consciousness. Often imbued with potent magical protections, it becomes extraordinarily difficult to destroy, for its destruction would mean the lich's true permanent end. Thus, its hidden, safeguarded existence, tucked away in remote, heavily warded sanctuaries, becomes central to the lich's ongoing survival. With every preparation complete, the aspiring lich finally reaches the pivotal step, consuming the potion of transformation. This vile alchemical mixture, carefully brewed from those grim components collected over a lifetime, is said to taste unspeakably foul, causing a burning coldness that corrodes the throat and seems to ignite the very soul. Once ingested, its effects begin immediately. It initiates a slow, excruciating death, gradually causing every cell to wither, every muscle to weaken, and every organ to painfully fail in a prolonged internal collapse. At the same time, the potion weakens the connection between the caster's soul and their mortal body, preparing their essence for its transfer. It's a methodical, precise decay, painful yet meticulously controlled, a chilling internal disintegration. Then, in a climactic and terrifying moment, the moment of death and undeath, the ritual reaches completion. As the necromancer's physical body finally succumbs, a profound stillness settles over the scene. At this fleeting instant, their prepared soul, now unbound, is violently torn from its mortal shell. It neither journeys onward to the afterlife nor lingers in spiritual realms. Instead, compelled by powerful magical currents, it rushes directly toward the waiting phylactery, drawn into its carefully prepared vessel. Simultaneously, the lifeless corpse, infused with potent negative energy, subtly shifts and reanimates not as a living creature, but as a cold, undead echo of its former self, becoming merely the new vessel through which the lich's consciousness acts. There's no gasping breath, no dramatic awakening, only an eerie shift from mortal stillness into a colder, deeper quiet. Eyes once warm with life now become empty sockets, faintly glowing with a cold, malevolent awareness. The body often withers dramatically, skin stretching tightly over bones to create a skeletal appearance, or settling into an unnatural preservation. It is a chilling testament to sheer determination, the ultimate victory of willpower over natural law. Above all, the phylactery remains paramount. As long as this deceptively humble object remains unharmed, the lich cannot truly perish. Even if its physical form is completely destroyed, its consciousness gradually rebuilds a new body over time, pulled from the phylactery's powerful magic. This grants the lich a truly terrifying immortality, shifting its true vulnerability away from its body to this single, hidden vessel. Consequently, a lich spends eternity vigilantly protecting its phylactery, placing it in secretive, remote locations, protected by intricate magical defenses and layers of undead guardians, an eternal game of concealment, patience, and silent vigilance. This brings us to the lich itself, a being no longer bound by hunger, sleep, time, or decay. Freed from the burdens of mortality, the lich devotes centuries, sometimes entire millennia, to a cold, tireless pursuit of forbidden knowledge, of ultimate mastery over life and death. Its home is rarely a castle of grandeur, but more often a vast, forgotten library where dust settles thick on ancient tomes, or a long-abandoned lab, echoing only with the quiet hum of dark experiments carried out in solitude. These creatures do not act out of haste. Their plans stretch across generations. Their patience knows no limits. Their thoughts remain sharp and precise, untouched by the needs or emotions that fade with the living body. But with this unending life comes a chilling stillness. Leeches are often alone not by choice, but by the sheer nature of what they've become. Warmth, companionship, joy, those are things of the past. What remains is focus, silence. A mind always moving forward, even when the world forgets it ever existed. The quiet that surrounds a lich isn't just eerie, it's a reflection of its timeless, tireless contemplation of the greatest mysteries that ever were. And now, our long journey through the shadowed halls of necromancy draws gently to a close. We've walked past the veil that separates life from death, trying to understand the strange currents of life force and the quiet, cold pull of negative energy that lies beneath it all. We've seen what it means to animate the dead, to give movement to what was once still. We've followed the clatter of bones as skeletons rise with perfect obedience, and heard the slow shuffle of zombies, caught in an endless loop of borrowed motion. We've glimpsed ghouls and specters, creatures born of hunger, regret, or vengeance, and watched as ancient mummies stirred beneath centuries of dust and silence. We explored the soul itself not as a distant idea, but as something tangible, something that can be captured, transferred, or even imprisoned. We witnessed how a necromancer can use magic not only to move bodies, but to nudge wills, to bend thoughts, silence resistance, and claim control, whether over the dead or the living. And, finally, we looked upon the final ambition, lichdom, a path not simply to power, but to permanence. Through sacrifice, obsession, and unrelenting will, the necromancer becomes something beyond life, anchored not by flesh, but by a phylactery hidden in darkness. Forever waiting, forever watching. Yet through all of this, we've tried not to cast necromancy as just a thing of horror. We've also seen its strange beauty, its patience, its deep yearning to understand what others fear, its cold precision and quiet rebellion against the finality of death. We've paused to reflect on the ethical weight it carries, and the quiet isolation that often follows those who walk this path. And now, let that same stillness, the calm of the crypt, the hush of an undisturbed tomb, the slow breath of a world long forgotten, begin to settle within you. Let the worries of the day drift away, like dust in a forgotten hall, undisturbed by time. Let your mind grow quiet, your thoughts grow soft. There are no more incantations to learn tonight, no more grim tomes to open, no more puzzles to solve. All of this knowledge was only ever meant to guide you gently to this moment, a space of rest, of stillness, of peace. Embrace the slow rhythm of the necromancer's study. Calm, deliberate, quiet. Allow yourself to let go. You need not hold on anymore. Let the idea of rest wash over you, like a spell cast not in haste, but with reverence. Let it be deep, like the spell of gentle repose still, undisturbed, sacred. And now drift, slowly, easily, into slumber. Let it be as still as an ancient crypt, as peaceful as a soul passing gently into the beyond, as deep as the silent vigil of a lich resting in its hidden sanctuary. Sleep well. Let nothing trouble your rest. Good night.